to a special reaction, live stream reaction to the Derby County. Really poor result, and it brings me great pleasure today to have subbed Jack off for the mighty Mashiter. Nick, how are you? Apart from that result, how are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, it's a bit wet and windy in the West Midlands. Maybe the same elsewhere, but yeah, no, we're all right, Tom. We're all good.
What's your take on today's game? What's your straight off the back reaction? How did that make you feel watching that as a Norwich City supporter?
Oh, it's a long come Norwich, isn't it? It is just typical, unfortunately. I think Derby, you've got to give credit to Derby because there's always 11 players trying to stop you doing your job as an opposition team, and I think they did a really good job. I think Norwich played into their hands to a certain extent, and it only really started to get some sort of gain ground on them when Hugo came on and they put a couple of crosses into the box. It's not a surprise that the penalty aside, the two best chances they created from the which David Marshall did very well to say from Max Aarons and Jordan Hugill came from crosses. And one of my bugbears last season was I think that it is incredibly admirable to have a style and stick to it and have the courage of your convictions to do it. But when it's not working, there is nothing wrong with the plan B. And I think sometimes, maybe all the time, they are very reluctant to go to that plan B. At what stage does sticking with plan A become foolish? And I think that was the case today, and that was certainly the case last season, although in the Premier League it's a very different level.
No, Nick, completely agree with you. Hello to everyone in here. First and foremost, before we get into the nuts and bolts of that massive disappointment, thank you to everyone that's joining us. Let's get some straight off the back reaction immediately. Fluky Flick on YouTube says Farke needs to go. Big questions are going to be asked now of Daniel Farke. I'm not surprised to see that sort of call being made. Barry Lee Cullis, friend of the channel, says unreal. The Plastic Paddy says we are just not good enough. Sophie says, here we go again. Sophie, I'm with you. I'm totally with you again. Some really big shouts here. Frustrating, says James Carter. Yes, we are feeling that definitely for sure. And Nick, before we let out our frustrations and let the therapy session commence, let's begin from the top. The team selection. What did you think of today's team selection? Because for me, I was absolutely delighted to see Ben Gibson start and make his debut. I actually thought that, it was a really solid debut. Actually, there was only one kind of shaky moment for him. Great to see Buendia back in that side. But again, what was your take on the starting lineup today?
I would like to see a little bit more of Jordan Hugill. I think certainly the last few games, he's not got enough opportunities, not had enough opportunities, and it's quite evident that something's just not clicking right now. So try something different. I mean, it's so easy for me to sort of sit here and say try something different. It's not as easy as that. It's not as black and white as that. But I would like to see Hugill be given a little bit more of a chance. Disappointing not to see Cantwell in again. I think the way that the manager's handled that publicly is probably not the best. I'm sure we'll discuss that a little bit more in depth later. But I think they need him. Good to see Buendia back, and aside from that, I didn't really have much of a problem with kind of sort of how they initially lined up. I don't know about you.
No, absolutely, Nick. I think you're right in your observations there. And I think going into the game, you looked at that squad and you thought, actually, you know what, that's pretty solid. I agree with the omission of Kenny. I did. I felt that in the first half, Lucas Rupp did well, actually, in the first half. Credit where credit's due. Obviously, the free kick to give away at the end, we will definitely be getting into that because I am furious with him for that. But yeah, I thought the team that we started off was okay, and I felt that we should have done better, and I think we are hinting at quite a few things now, Nick, and I'm not going to hold back in this live stream. I'm fed up of it. There's excuses in the pre-match press conferences from Daniel Farke, and as you've said, I think Derby came with a game plan today, suck up the pressure from Norwich. Look, in the first 15 minutes, we had 76% possession. We were absolutely all over them like a red rash. But yet Derby knew, just suck it up and sit tight. They're not gonna try and get a shot away early. And one thing that you've brought up there, Nick, which I think now we need to go into is we're playing Xavi Quintilla, and we've got this ability to whip balls into the box. Hodgie on Twitter said this actually. It just seems like this is not the type of team for Teemu Pukki to perform at his peak level anymore. When we're playing in a system of such of get the balls into the box. The penalty miss is another question. But yeah, if I'm John Hugel at the moment, I would be absolutely furious. Let's just have a quick interlude and get some of your questions, reactions, raves and rants in. We really appreciate seeing them as always. Matthew Johnson on Facebook says, Gibson looked really solid in my opinion. Would love to see a non-injury played Hanley alongside Gibson. I agree. I personally felt that Christoph Zimmermann was okay today. Couple of elements to his game, which I wasn't particularly happy with. Nick, what was your take on Zimmermann, and what's your kind of ultimate centre-back partnership?
The ultimate centre-back partnership would include Ben Godfrey, but unfortunately that's not going to happen anymore. So again, look, I think Gibson is a really good signing. He had Premier League interest as well. Wanted to come to Norwich. Was really impressed with the setup and how they do things and how they kind of sold the project, if you will, to him. That was ongoing for quite some time. He met them a sort of number of weeks before he eventually signed. I think he was somebody that they needed all along last season. And Zimmermann, we know what you can do at this level. So I don't think there's Hanley is an option, but I think for me at the minute, I think it's going to be Gibson plus somebody else, and I don't think there's any kind of sort of call just yet to drop Zimmermann.
Look, I must say, Nick, actually, I'm going to politely disagree with you, and I think a lot of people will also disagree with me on this. Actually, I'm actually not too bothered to see Ben Godfrey go to Everton. I think that Gibson alongside Zimmermann or Hanley in the Championship should be a solid unit. Like nothing should get past that. And to get the amount of money that we did for Ben, I know there's a lot of latent potential there, but I actually felt like that was a good piece of business. Although a lot of people are fair, and feel free to disagree with me. Feel free to disagree with me. And a player that we should mention today, Nick, just on a slightly random note, is Marco Stiepermann. Good to see him back in the team. I personally think he has the ability to link our midfield with our forward, I say line, Teemu. I feel like he has that connection a lot better than others. What did you think of Marcus Stiepermann's performance today?
It's very sort of similar to a lot of the guys sort of who were playing in that midfield. That they were trying, they were pushing, they couldn't make that final pass happen. So the only time that they really managed to sort of play through Derby was when they won the penalty, which was a great little bit of play, of course. It's there. Like, we keep on. You can sort of go around in circles talking about it, but everybody knows what a lot of these guys can do in the Championship, which is probably the most frustrating thing at the minute, because it just hasn't clicked. So I'm not going to kind of sort of harangue anybody just yet, because it is still early, but there's clearly kind of you don't want to say hangover or I don't want to kind of really kind of push too much onto last season, but they need to get out of the funk they're in. And players like Stiepermann can do it, can offer a way through, can pick a pass, can score a goal. So it's just a matter of clicking. That there wasn't. It just wasn't. They weren't sharp enough. They weren't fluid enough, and I think they lacked a bit of sort of precision, a bit of purpose. But that's not just one player. I think that was everybody today.
Yes, I agree. On a lighter note, great to see Norwich legend Mick McCarthy on the co-coms today. He lightened my day a little bit. Of course, thank you for all of his hard work during his time at Ipswich. I think a player that we have to mention, of course, is Emi Buendia, Nick. Good to see him back in today. But as you've said, we weren't necessarily fluid. There was, of course, that bit of spark here and there. We missed his creativity, his nimble footwork. I felt that we saw that in certain sections of the game today, but not enough. And I feel like that is because obviously, of course, he's just been thrown back into the team after being publicly mauled by Daniel Farke. Emi Buendia, are we going to be able to keep hold of him, Nick?
I'd love to have a crystal ball and say, give you a sort of a definitive answer, but nobody knows, because if and it would go for Pookie, it would go for other players in the team that it will be attracting interest. If something happens this weekend to a team in the Premier League who have players like Buendia, Cantwell, Pookie, Aaron's on their lists, because they do, then their plans change. So there's nothing Norwich can do to stop anybody coming in for a player if somebody gets ruled out for the season this afternoon or tomorrow. So it's going to be kind of sort of, you just have to sort of hold your breath really over this weekend. Whether he goes or not, we just don't know yet. And if they keep him, then it's great for the club, because he is a player which can cause havoc in the Championship. I know for a fact. Teams this season have been delighted that he's not been involved, because he always gives teams problems, always gives them something to think about. Somebody from a team that they've played this season texted me, they were delighted that Buendia wasn't playing. Cool. So Norwich need him fit, firing, and motivated, and probably sort of and if they have that, then he will be an asset. It's just and we'll get onto this later, it's just how you manage him, I think, at the minute, which maybe not the manager's strong suit.
Yes, Nick, we will definitely get really, really stuck into the transfer ins and outs. Of course, being in the position that you're in, really looking forward to getting some insights on that. And be sure everyone that's watching now to stay tuned right until the end when me and Nick discuss the ongoing transfer saga at Norwich City, Todd Cantwell, Emi Buendia, and more. Nick, back to the game though. I feel like we need to just let's do this in the wrong order. Teemu Pukki going up to take that penalty. Did you really have the confidence that he was going to finish it?
Yeah. He's a goal scorer. He's had obviously the problems at the back end of, or the second half last season, where those goals didn't flow for him. But he's a goal scorer, and why wouldn't he be taking that penalty? If you want him to score goals, if you want him to get that confidence from scoring goals, give him the penalty. And it's but for a slip, it's 1-0, and Norwich probably take charge of the game and possibly go on to win it. So I didn't question why he'd be. If he wasn't taking the penalty, I'd be questioning it. Yeah,
no, I agree with that. I guess where I'm coming from, Nick, is and looking back at it, and it's very easy for me to now, obviously being an armchair supporter like everyone else, I'm thinking to myself, right, you've played on this pitch now for what, at least 45 minutes. You know it's wet underfoot. Is that the right run up? Look, maybe I'm overreacting here. I really don't want to hyperbole it, but I just felt like, to me, like I just think Teemu to do that at that sort of time, I'm still questioning it. And you know what? I'm going to make a statement now. I'm 100% dropping Teemu Pukki in the next game. It's the first time I've said this, Nick, and it hurts me to say it, because I feel like he's absolutely got the potential to yet again demolish the Championship. But I don't have that confidence at the moment. And I feel for Jordan Hugill. And I know that it's very cheap for fans we get accused sometimes, supporters as a whole, of, sometimes it's not always the answer, a player that's on the bench. But for me, I look at Jordan Hugill. What did he do today? He comes on, he causes a nuisance. He absolutely superb header, fantastic save by David Marshall. Nick, if you're Daniel Farke, is it fair to say that you're going to be starting him in the next game, or would you consider starting Jordan Hugill now?
I'd be considering starting Jordan Hugill, but I wouldn't necessarily be thinking about dropping Teemu Pukki. Can they play together? I don't know. I mean, they haven't really had the opportunity to kind of show that or get any kind of understanding or partnership going at the minute. But we know it's rare that they'll play two up top. But why not? I think you've brought Hugill in for a decent wedge, and it's so easy and it's too early to start kind of throwing toys out the pram and getting overly concerned, because there's always got to be a bit of measure to it. But I would be looking at a way of starting Hugo, but Ida is clearly ahead of him at the minute, isn't he?
Yeah.
So why not start Ida instead? So I think that it shows that he's ahead of him because he's getting more game time. He's coming on before him. So it's easy to say, right, okay, well let's go with Hugo, but clearly at the minute in the manager's thinking, then there's somebody else ahead of him as well.
A game of opinions. Let us know in the comments who you think should start up front for Norwich in the next match for sure. Let us know. Would you start 2 up top? Would you start with 1? Would you replace Pookie? Would you start with Ida? Let us know, and we will put your comment on the screen for sure. And it's really interesting here because I've spoken to a lot of QPR fans, of West Ham fans, and Robert Snodgrass at West Ham as well, and they all said, Jordan Hugill, he smells a bit of Grant Holt. He's got that ability. He's got that sort of size, that stature. He's, as you've said with Emmy, teams are worried about coming up against him, and particularly in the Championship, and particularly because of the season that he had last season. I feel like we're not playing the best team at the moment, and I think you're right. I think that we should consider potentially changing the system, which I don't think Daniel Farke will do. And look, maybe I'm a bit emotional after the game at the moment, and maybe I'll see the light, but for me at the moment, I really, really would love to see Teemu Pukki up top with Hugill behind, or if not, I really want to see Hugill start now. I think it's time to bring him on. And Nick, obviously you watched the game today. What did you make of Michael Wynne-Jones's reaction to the penalty miss?
Just any fan would be doing the same, wouldn't they? So it shows they care. And we all know they do. There wouldn't be a club without them. So I think it's just a fan reaction, which is good to see, because I think if there was stone silence, then that's when you get concerned. But no, it was nice to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. And something that I just want to draw attention to again. I'm not normally a stat man, but I tried to pay a bit more attention to the stats today. We had 2 shots up until the 70th minute. That's not good enough for a team that are going for automatics, right, Nick?
No, it's not. But again, you go back. Derby did, to an extent, did a number on them. I think they defended really well. They clearly had the game plan. They knew what they wanted to come and get. If they could have got a point, they would have been delighted. If they got the win, which they did, absolutely fantastic. They came to snatch something, to keep it tight. That's exactly what they did. And Norwich played into their hands. As we said, once they mixed it up, once they changed it, once a couple of crosses went into the box, that's when they had the chances. And it's very frustrating that it's so easy for us to come on after the game and sort of act like Captain Hindsight, but it is I think sort of a change in dimension, a change in the way that they play sometimes is needed. They don't do it quick enough, basically.
No, I agree,
and that's down to the manager.
Yeah, no, Nick, I agree. It's cliche, of course, but I think, we always say that the second half is the manager's half. And, sometimes it's important that you need to be proactive and bring the game to the opposition. I don't think we did that. Yet again, bringing on Jordan Hugill in the 84th minute is way too late, And I just felt again today that the substitutions weren't on fast enough. I say this every week in, week out. I feel like I'll do this until the day that Daniel Farke, leaves at some stage. I'm a bit fed up of it. You know what concerns me though, Nick, is that I think you're probably the other side of the fence at the moment. Settle down, be careful, don't overreact, try not to get too emotional. But Stuart Webber, giving credit when credit's due, has given Daniel Farke all of the resource to start this season going out the gates as fast as possible. And this nonsense about the transfer window disruption is nonsense. Manage your players effectively, look after them, and you know that they'll perform well for you. You're not telling me today that team that was on the pitch was affected by the transfer window. That is a garbage excuse, Nick. And I just can't sit here fairly and stick up for it. I can't, because I genuinely believe we've now lost 2 games, 1-0, at where we've had at least 65% possession. That's criminal. That's criminal at any level. And again, people criticize me for, potentially overreacting. I honestly don't think I'm overreacting. We should have come out the gates flying. We haven't. Daniel Farke has given all of the resource to perform well. And I'm seeing in the comments, a lot of you are questioning Daniel Farke now, and I'm not surprised. So when, what do we do from here, Nick? What's Stuart Webber thinking? Because I suspect, of course, he will stick with it, and of course, it's the right thing to do to stick with Daniel Farke now. But I feel like this transfer window excuse is very convenient, and I don't see us being able to turn our disappointing performances after the transfer window. I don't see what difference that's going to make, because we're still more or less going to have the same personnel. I don't think we missed Ben Godfrey too much today, yet Daniel Farke was crying over that in the press conference. So personally, for me, I'm just frustrated, and I think questions need to be asked of Daniel Farke.
Well, I was talking to, actually, I said this to Emi Buendia when I spoke to him a few weeks ago. The expectation is there now, and that expectation hasn't been on the players or around the club during this regime. When they went up, nobody expected them to go up, let alone win the title. And when they're in the Premier League last season, nobody expected them to survive, really. So now it is a bit of a shift, but it is a big shift, because there is that expectation now. People are expecting them to go out, play through teams, and roll teams over. But it doesn't work like that. We know it doesn't work like that. So it's how the players manage to manage that, in a way, manage those expectations, and we'll only really see that kind of come probably the end of the month when they've played a few more games. But yeah, right now, I mean, they won at Huddersfield because of a Richard Stearman mistake.
Yeah, very true.
They got a point against Preston because of poor goalkeeper from Declan Rudd. They've lost the other two. I don't want to kind of sort of pick holes in the points that they have got, but you can argue that they have been already fortuitous to get the points that they've got, because they've benefited from mistakes. And in the games, I didn't see the Bournemouth game last week, but certainly today, in the games that they haven't got any points in, did they really? They were the better side. They were the aggressors as such. But did they do enough to win the game? You have to argue that no, not really. Penalty miss aside, because if that goes in, we're talking about a different game.
Nick, sadly, I think you're right. And Jack and I have been predicting this was going to happen before the season started. We said if we don't come out the gates flying, the Norwich fans will start to turn on Daniel Farke, and this is what we are doing. Steve091 on YouTube. Obviously, I can't read out the expletives, but feel free to put them in the comments anyway. He says, Farke out. I'm sick and tired of the same old. All the possession, but creating nothing. He'll come out with the same old in his interview. Nick, although Steve-O is frustrated there, and I get that, and there's a couple of swearies which I'm not going to criticise because we all feel like that. I can't help but empathise with that, because I'm fed up of poetry and not points. This poetry press conferences, we are this is amazing. This not, it's just nonsense. And and you're right. How many times? When was the last time that we had a convincing win? I think I read on Twitter that's now 1 win in 17 games. Like, that is seriously alarming. And I don't think it's very, very, very uncommon for a football manager to survive that. And look, there's loads of comments here. Farke out, David Wagner in, Eddie Howe in. How, for me, like these, I'm not sure about Eddie Howe myself. There are so many people in here saying Daniel Farke out, and we knew this was going to happen. Nick, is this going to get more poisonous for Daniel if he doesn't pick up points soon?
Oh, absolutely. That goes without saying, and I think but that would go for any manager in his position. That you come down after losing the amount of games they did at the end of last season, and then fail to make a fast start. You're gonna be putting yourself under pressure. in a way, it might be good that there are no fans right now in the ground, because
they would have been
that reaction at the end probably wouldn't have been brilliant. But look, that's the reaction that you've got to look out for, rather than on Twitter, social media, whatever. It's the fans in the ground. It's the fans who go. Nobody can at the minute, of course, but that's the reaction that you look out for. So I will always take social media, especially kind of in the immediate aftermath of the game, with a little bit of a pinch of salt. But yeah, I think he will be given, as you said already, he's been given the tools to do everything possible to get back up again. And I am sure they will give him as much time as possible, because he is the sporting director's man. So if Daniel Farke fails, the sporting director fails, and he won't want to do that.
Yes, no, I agree, and that's why I'm hoping we seriously win some football matches soon. Contrasting opinion, Fluky Flick on YouTube says we need the fans back. I agree with what you're saying, Nick. Actually, it was probably good that we weren't there today, because we would have been furious. The fans would have been spitting feathers over that at Carrow today, and they wouldn't have stood for it. But there is an element for me, and this isn't an excuse, by the way, but this does hurt me a bit, because I feel like today, with the supporters in the ground, we would have been able to give our team the edge. We would have been the 12th man. We would have been able to, I genuinely feel that, and that is frustrating for me. So Fluky Flick, great comment over on YouTube there for sure. George Rutherford, he's obviously, oh no, wrong comment. I've lost your comment, George. Here we go. George says David Wagner's just been sacked at Schalke after a similar run of scores this year. So, yeah, look, David Wagner is not the answer. He's not the answer for me, that I have to say. Nick, let's go back to the game. Let's try to go back to the game, although I feel like this is going to be very much a top-level reaction to all of the ins and outs at Norwich at the moment. Lucas Rupp. Now, there are a lot of people that love him. There are a lot of people that hate him. Not personally, of course, his performances on the pitch. I've actually changed my opinion on Lucas Rupp after the Bournemouth game. I felt that he was actually really effective, and I had a bit of an argument with Jack on air about it, actually, because I personally feel like Lucas Rupp had a good game against Bournemouth, and I felt that he carried that into the first half of today's game. But let's talk about that free. I mean, I just can't. I can't even sum it up. I can't understand why he has not brought that man down earlier. What's going through your head? And what do you make to the Lucas Rupp debate at the moment? Because it's rife with the Norwich fans. Everyone's talking about Todd Cantwell and Buendia, but Lucas Rupp is next on that list. Where are you on Lucas Rupp?
I'm going to sit completely on the fence, because I've barely seen him play. I'm just being over here and being at other games. Usually when Norwich are playing, I don't get the opportunity to see them loads. But no, I genuinely haven't got much of an opinion on it at the minute. I'm sorry to kind of sort of be a little bit soft on it, but I generally don't know, because I haven't seen enough of him to make a judgment. It's then not fair of me to say this or that, because until I've seen him for a decent length of time, I don't know. But if Buendia and if Cantwell are fit and available, they should be starting. It's clearly I mean, you wonder whether it's a discipline. We'll get onto it later, but we wonder if it's now a discipline issue. The manager's kind of putting his foot down on. But if they play, does Rupp? So, but no, I generally don't know, because I haven't seen him enough. So I'm really sorry.
No, Nick, that's totally fair enough. So we'll just take that situation in isolation. Then, obviously Ida gives it away at first, but should he have fouled them earlier, or did you think, or are you saying that actually Zimmerman was to blame for that goal being that free kick being conceded potentially? Where do you stand on it?
I still like to give credit to it was a great run, and it was a great bit of play from Derby. Good break. I mean, realistically, I think a player probably needs to have a little bit more nous and take on for the team as such. We've all seen it happen. We've all seen them do it. Just lay him out when he's 40, 50 yards from goal, rather than kind of just on the edge of the area. But it happens. I would question Tim Krul's positioning.
Yeah,
because I saw that, and you're thinking, well, there is only one place Rooney's putting this. You knew it was all. You didn't need a crystal ball to see him being able to put that in the top corner. So I thought Tim was a little bit too far over. So you could argue that, but it was also a good free kick. So
yeah, no, you can. I must say I am actually gonna defend Tim Krul. I felt all right. I can understand why people are questioning it a little bit, but when you're coming against it's still an absolutely world-class kick taker in Wayne Rooney. I really don't think Tim Krul's to blame for that as such. And I don't want to, try and overhype this too much. But for me, I cannot defend Lucas Rupp. I've tried so hard in the Bournemouth game, and people were like, "Oh my God, Chris, have you been taking drugs because you're backing Lucas Rupp?" But it's true. I felt that he'd improved, but I can't defend that today. I cannot fathom you not bringing that man down in the centre circle. It's basics. And a lot of people are saying, give him time. This is what happened with Mario Vrancic. But my patience is already wearing thin this season with plenty of people, by the way, not just with Lucas Rupp, with Timu Pukki, with Daniel Farke. There's a lot of people that need some serious critical conversations being had with. And yeah, quite frankly, Lucas Rupp for me, just absolute shocker today, and I am really pissed off with him over it. Lucas Scott says everything about Rupp is average. What? A very creative YouTube name there. Says Rupp didn't have the pace to track back and stop their man running though. Yeah, but if you don't have the pace, that's why you bring him down earlier. That's my take on that. James Youngs on YouTube says maybe Farke should admit to his mistakes and bring back Tribal and Leitner. Both tore it up last time in the championship. James, if you've watched TNC, you'll know that I'm still emotional over us letting Tribal go. But I have to say, and Nick, let's get your take on this man, Oliver Skipp, superb. And today, again, there was a moment where he lost the ball, and the way he won the ball back. Oliver Skipp's a real big coup for Norwich this season, isn't he?
Yeah, he's massive. He had Premier League interest. He had serious Premier League interest from established clubs, but being able to come to Norwich and play the way that they do, he joined obviously for a promotion push, to kind of hone his skills that way, where you're probably going to have more of the ball rather than being defending in the Premier League all the time, for instance, and having it back against the wall. So he chose that way to develop his game and progress, because they felt that would be the better option than to, as I said, kind of sort of, slug it out in the bottom six, bottom half of the Premier League, and perhaps kind of sort of be damaged by that. So he's an exceptional player. I think we've already seen that already. Really good coup. He was number 2 on the list. Ampadu was number 1, but Skipp was the sort of second choice. But I think everybody will be happy that they've got him anyway, regardless of whether he was number 1 or 2, because he is a fantastic player. And I think they did really well to get him, and be able to kind of fight off some sort of serious Premier League interest for him.
Nick, let's put this question to you from Finley By on YouTube. He says, why do you believe Farke is not willing to drop players when this year we debatably have our best squad depth in years? What's your take on that?
Is he stubborn? I don't know the manager particularly well at all. I've met him a couple of times after press conferences, and that's it. So you kind of just have to make some kind of educated guess. But the way that he handles some of the players, with the Leitner, the Tribal situation, with the Cantwell situation, and from what I've been told over the past few years, you have to kind of sort of make the judgment that he might be just stubborn, and that's not necessarily a good trait. I don't think it's a good trait to have away from the pitch, away from that 90 minutes. They do need to mix it up, I guess, if you want that sort of taking down to a bit of a base level. But I think the guys without squad numbers, they ain't coming back. I was told long time in the summer that they weren't going to play a part at all. So I don't know exactly what's happened there, but I'm sure we will find out when the dust settles on things. I can promise you that. But I think ultimately it probably comes down to stubbornness. But that is without knowing him, so it's difficult to kind of sort of cast too many aspersions over his character.
Yeah, no. Let's try and think about, I actually think what happens on the pitch does the talking, though, Nick. To be honest with you, so I don't think we need to get personal. We don't know Daniel Farke. We don't know what he's like behind the scenes. I've heard mixed things. That's the honest truth. I've heard some players, they see him as a father figure, whereas we've obviously seen with the experienced players that have departed the club that they're not particularly happy with him. So I think, as you say, all of this will come out in the wash. Look, I think it's very, very obvious that we are not going to see a change in formation. We are not going to see a change in style. We are not going to see Daniel Farke change his ways. And that will ultimately mean that he will have to lay in the bed that he has made and will continue to make for himself. But I want to make it clear, I am certainly not saying Daniel Farke out. I'm not saying that. But I'm also trying to be fair here and understand. I can totally empathise with people asking questions over this. I can totally empathise with it, because what we've seen so far is less than convincing. Again, David, I'm going to take your word for it because we've not listened to it. But I'm not surprised if this is true. Farke's post-match is ridiculous. Unlucky. Can't criticise the lads. Only one team tries to win. We lost, Daniel. Come on, take ownership, David. This is something that I said time after time in the Premier League. Take accountability, take ownership, take responsibility. That is leadership 101. And at the moment, I'm not sure those players are playing to their optimum for Daniel Farke. And look, Nick, the first thing I noticed when Buendia got taken off, and I feel like I say this every time, there weren't any handshakes. He is straight down the tunnel, and then he's up on the side of the stand, slamming down the seat. Do you feel for Buendia? Do you feel for those players? Do you think that Daniel Farke is using them effectively at the moment?
Well, you'd have to say no because of the results and because of the performances. Certainly, if you want to, and no manager likes kind of the back end of one season and the start of another getting married up, but that's unavoidable right now because of the small length of time that there was between the two seasons and the way last season ended. So no, he's clearly not. From what I hear and what you kind of sort of garner from the last sort of few months or the last year or so, that I don't think that they would necessarily go to war for him, the players.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. I think once you start losing the players like that, and not being able to kind of motivate them properly or manage them properly, I'm going to make a point of this because I think he's a bad man manager, then that's going to impact on the pitch, of course. So go into his. We haven't seen it yet, but if that's what he said in the post match, I think Norwich were probably the only team trying to win. Derby had a game plan. They came to get what they could, but they did it better than Norwich. They were the ones who won the game ultimately. There is a determination and an almost desperate need to be positive at the club, which I understand. Everybody wants to be positive, but it's blinding sometimes. I think this sort of need to sort of be positive and not listen to criticism or react badly to criticism when it's given. So I do think that there needs to be a little bit more soul searching, I think, perhaps after today.
No, Nick, it's totally fair criticism. I think again, let's give Daniel Farke the benefit of the doubt and say, look, do your talking with the results, do your talking with the performances at least. And all right, you can say today that we played this nice tippy-tappy football and had all the possession, but did we create enough chances? No. Did we? Hell. Was it exciting to watch? Absolutely no, it wasn't. Was Teemu Pukki effective up top on his own with Xavi Quintilla whipping in balls to him? No, he wasn't. Was our defence confident in the way they played? Probably not. It's probably fair to say. I thought we were okay at best. Just really under par. And I actually feel like at the moment, the more the fans talk about certain subjects, the more Daniel Farke is almost so stubborn for it to not happen. And maybe that's me getting a bit too emotional about it. Nick, let's talk about this right now. I know that, you know, when I've been speaking to you in the last few weeks about all of the transfer ins and outs, etc. You know, doing what you do. Really fascinated to get your take on the Todd Cantwell saga. Really interested. Where does that sit with you at the moment? Because obviously, like, look, everyone knows my opinion. I don't think Toddy should have been burnt in public like he was, considering what he has done for our football club by way of winning, being part of a league-winning side, and being arguably our second or third best player in the Premier League with what he contributed. I know things change quickly in football, but regardless of that, do you think Daniel Farke has managed this situation effectively? And I really want to get your opinion on the Todd Cantwell saga right now.
Has he managed it effectively? No. I think that sums it up fairly succinctly. One of Norwich's most effective players isn't playing because the manager, you know, feels the need to. I don't know whether he feels the need to make an example of him. And in fact, if Todd Cantwell's not playing, then that link up with Timo Pukki's not there, and therefore it impacts on Pukki's game because they have a good understanding. So it's almost kind of cutting your nose off to spite your face. The manager clearly wants to send a message. I think he's done that.
He's done.
He's done that, but probably in the wrong way. I don't think you need to come out and say what he did say after the Bournemouth game, both to Cantwell and Buendia. You know, Cantwell wants to play. He wants to be able to help. He wants to be able to put his shoulder to the wheel and play for the club. If he's still here come October the 17th, because I think, you know, it's easy to forget that the domestic deadline goes past Monday. Then he will get his head down and get on with things. He can't affect the transfer talk. Has it been unsettling? Yes. But he's a young man, and that's going to be the case for every player in his position. That if a Premier League team comes in for you, which there are, nothing been agreed, of course, and it's really interesting that it's kind of dragged on for a week without kind of any kind of serious resolution. Then it's going to be distracting, but he can't do anything about it. He wants to play and he wants to be effective for Norwich, and he cares. And I think we saw that at the end of last season. Not that we didn't think that already, but he cares. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look, I think you've touched on something there, Nick. You know, some players, and this is something actually, you know, and if you're watching this now, we've got an amazing podcast being dropped at 12 o'clock midday tomorrow with a former Norwich player with regards to the man management of Glenn Roeder. And I'm afraid to say it sounds like there are some similarities in terms of man management. And that's just purely on the ex-player that I've spoken to and what we are debating now. Some players need an arm around them. Todd Cantwell is one of those players. I honestly, I don't see how Toddy can get back from this. I would be amazed if he does, because if my manager did that to me, I certainly wouldn't be motivated anymore. I wouldn't at all. I'd be like, hang on a minute, mate. After everything I've done for you, I'm sorry, I just can't say it. But however, what I will say, because a lot of people have tweeted me some stick on this and said, you know, I'm Todd's mate and all this stuff. I want to make it clear. I agree with Todd Cantwell Daniel Farke not starting Todd Cantwell in the last two games. I absolutely agree with that. But to omit him from the squad when he's still such a creative player and burn him in public when he's not even there to talk to you about it, I personally think that's cowardly. And I'm not surprised that Emi Buendia's relationship has broken down with Daniel Farke in the last few weeks at all in the slightest. And
I think any player who has, and I'm not saying that the ones that will get on with the manager don't have any character or aren't strong people, but I think any characters, any anybody who is able to stand up to the manager I think he has issues with. He struggles to manage them. There is one incident that I would love to speak about, which I can't speak about. Which
go on.
No, sadly, I really, really can't. It might eventually come out in the wash, but he has treated players disgracefully. There's one incident that I'm thinking of, and it just beggars belief, like how he's handled some situations. And I don't think we're saying anything that particularly will be surprising to anybody. I think it's an open secret that he is a bad manager.
Okay, well, Nick, certainly not pulling any punches there. What do you think about Daniel Farke and the way that he's approached things at the moment? Let us know in the comments. Really interested to get your take on it. Look, and again, this is another bit of criticism that a lot of people in the Daniel Farke camp on that side of the argument has said last season. Well, hang on, respect goes two ways, Chris. What about everything that Daniel Farke has done for him and Russell? It's a very, very valid point, and I agree with that. But all I will say is there are two sides to every story, and I wouldn't just be talking nonsense. Like, that's all I'm saying. There are two sides to every story, and I think that Todd Cantwell is a very convenient and easy target because of what he does on social media. And I think that this has just been an opportunity for fans to pile on and cause something out of nothing. Jacob on YouTube says Cantwell could have changed the game today. Nick, could he have changed the game today?
Yeah, I think so. Somebody with his talent, the way that he can play, and something he can open up teams. Then yeah, I think the manager is now kind of in danger of losing control of the situation that ultimately he brought into the public domain, making him a scapegoat. Buendia to a certain extent as well, a scapegoat. And these guys don't deserve it. They care. They want to play. Reiterate the fact that Todd's a local lad, and we correct me if I'm wrong. The guys that have come through, Godfrey came from York, Aaron's and Lewis Luton, the Murphys came from North London. This is a guy who's sort of born and bred Norfolk, and there haven't been that many, I don't think, that have made a concerted impact who have come all the way through the system.
Yeah.
So I think that he is a special talent, magnified by the fact that he is one of the ones that Norwich have produced. They developed Ben Godfrey, having brought him from York. They didn't produce him. They developed, and we were talking about this yesterday. But they produced Todd Cantwell, and I'm not saying like he deserves treatment and special treatment, but this is a guy who has kind of he has the club in his veins, and he cares and he wants to be able to play, and the manager is not letting him do that at the minute.
There you go, folks. Don't just take it from me, take it from top football writer Nick Mashiter. Nick, let's go on to the next 4 fixtures, because I will be honest with you, I am not confident after losing that game to Derby at home. We're now going to be going, obviously, of course, we've got the international break, which is never nice to go into after a loss. After that, we've got Rotherham away up against Paul Warniola. They're not going to roll over. Norwich boy will want to do all of the naughty, nasty stuff against us, because that's what he does. Russ Martin said to me, Chris, you know what? I hate playing against Paul Warne's teams because he literally just kicks the shit out of us. and I fear for the worst. I do. Again, you look at that team today and you think, cool. I think Derby like to play football as properly. I say properly. I should probably stop saying that. Derby like to play a more fluent style of football, yeah? Whereas Rotherham, it's Brexit football. Let's not kid ourselves. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And then, of course, we've got Birmingham at home. Birmingham have been scoring more recently. And then we're at home to newly promoted Wycombe, which has to be a win. And then we've got Brentford away. Brentford obviously will be in and around the playoffs this season. Nick, how many points are we going to get from those 4 games?
they need. I think they probably need 10 to be able to ease some of that pressure. I think anything less than that, then questions are still going to remain. So I think Birmingham have done a decent job. Karanka has bought well on quite a small budget, and getting some of the characters in that they need, because they lacked a little bit last season. Wycombe, look, they really look like they're going to be the whipping boys. Gareth Ainsworth's done a fantastic job to get them to where they are at the minute, but it's kind of a bit like Yeovil a few years ago, when Yeovil managed to get into the Championship and to tumble back down. So you would expect that one. Do you think that Norwich should go and beat Rotherham? Yeah, but we're going back to that expectation. But that doesn't necessarily happen. And Brentford, at the minute, you'd expect Brentford to beat Norwich.
And I agree with that. But what I'm going to say to you, Nick, is yes, Wycombe are the whipping boys. I get that, and I agree with you. However, you look at Derby start of the season has been horrific, and they turned up today and they were smarter than us throughout the 90 minutes. And it just seemed like they were just They just knew what would happen. They knew how the game would play out. They were fairly relaxed. I still didn't feel that. Look, I know it was a smash and grab. I know that Wayne Rooney is Wayne Rooney, right? He's always got that ability to do that. But I look at that game. I look at that game against Wycombe, and I think I'm not so sure, because if they come and park the bus against us, I don't think Daniel Farke has worked out how to break that down yet. I don't, or at least if he had last time we won the league, he certainly doesn't know how to do it anymore. And the thing that frustrates me, Nick, right, which I'm seriously worried about, which I've spoken about so many times, I feel like a broken record. There's a lot of talk about, it's good that we've got a big squad. Is it? I actually think there's a culture crisis happening before our very eyes. How can you keep that amount of players happy? But also, if you've got that amount of players and you've just been knocked out of the cup competition, how are you going to experiment with the formations? Are you going to just try and change things around? It just seems like there's a lack of direction and purpose about Norwich City right now.
Yeah, the short answer is you don't keep players happy, because it's difficult to do that, because there's always 11 players who are going to be happy, and the rest of them are going to be unhappy because they're not starting or they're not playing. We'll go back to Jordan Hugill. Hugel's not happy. He's come to a club expecting to play a lot more than 6 minutes here and 10 minutes there. He's not happy. He had Reading. QPR wanted him back as well, but he chose to come to Norwich, and he's not playing as much as he probably expected to right now. So you don't keep players happy, and when you struggle to manage players, then that causes even more problems.
Yeah, no, I agree, and here's another problem that always gets brought up every time Norwich aren't doing so well. This always gets brought up. Obviously, can't read the expletive, but the point is, people are now going back to the board, and a lot of questions are being asked around, obviously, the sale of Ben Godfrey. I'm in the camp that it fills the hole that's been left by COVID, and it secures the club's future. But I personally, and I'll let Nick have his piece in a minute, but I have to say that we will never be able to keep bouncing back to the Premier League and retaining our Premier League status until we get further investment. I cannot make that clear enough. Nick, what do you do now? If you're Dealer and Michael Wynne-Jones and you're sitting there and you're watching this unfold, are you content with it? What sort of conversations would you be having with Stuart Webber?
It's every club would need investment, and every club would like a kind of a sugar daddy or whoever to come in and kind of just sort of bankroll them. I think Norwich are a massively attractive club, and there should be interest. There should be interest in them. I always made the comparison to Swansea, because when Norwich and Swansea went up a few years ago, Swansea kicked on to a certain extent. Obviously, it went a little bit awry a few years later. But I'm not necessarily talking about change of ownership, but they managed to establish themselves a lot longer than Norwich did in the Premier League, and that was with a little bit more savvy investment in players. But I think they're currently similar sized clubs, but Swansea is, miles away out on its own in Wales. Norwich should be an attractive proposition for players, for prospective owners. Yes, it's out of the way to a certain extent. Players always ask how quickly they can get to London.
Yeah.
Get to London in less than 2 hours. Come on, So, and I'm aware I'm sort of waffling a little bit here, but I think if a club like Swansea can establish themselves like they did a few years ago, again, look, it stopped working, then Norwich should be able to do the same. And they should be, and they surely will be, an attractive proposition to people coming in. I know there was interest because I spoke to people about it. They wanted to have Delia involved in terms of kind of like Aston Villa made Doug Ellis like life president.
Okay.
That was a conversation they had internally about what role can we give Delia. So and sort of a life presidency position was considered. Like nothing. It was only a very early stage, and nothing went any further than kind of internal talks between this sort of group. I don't think there's, it's so easy to kind of sort of forget that there wouldn't be a club beyond 1996. It would have been 1902 to 1996, RIP, without Delia.
I agree.
So, I do agree that it is going to be incredibly difficult to kick on, consolidate in the top flight and get that longevity without continued investment, because it's great that they're able to sell these players for the money they have done, but you're not always going to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, look, Nick, I agree with your points, and I disagree with some of your points as well. Great. Someone's quoted you up here, which I think is actually a real hilarious quote here by Jeremy Benson on YouTube. He says, "Everyone would like a sugar daddy, Nick Mashiter." What a quote to be quoted on, indeed. Look, and the reason why I wanted to discuss this, people will be saying, well, the board aren't to blame, Chris, but I have received so much criticism of late, and Jack has as well, of how we're up the board's arse and all of this stuff. So let's be clear, we know as a football club that we need more investment to retain some sort of Premier League status. However, it's so important to realise that this year is about survival. Yeah. So we're going to sell players and we're going to get a lot of money for them, but this year is about survival. Nick, as things stand, do you have the confidence that we can actually get promoted back to the Premier League as things stand?
It's kind of another sitting on the fence moment to sort of balance it up, really. Do they have the squad to do it? Yes. Have they got the experience to do it? Yes. Have they got the quality to do it? Yes.
Yeah.
Which then you flip it and go, well, today and against Bournemouth, and the performance against Preston, so I'm told wasn't the best. Then you have to sort of start to consider, okay, right. It's going to be a bit of a battle. It's not going to be the sort of the cakewalk that a lot of people may have expected. I think it's an average league this year. I think the Championship has been quite level, and by kind of sort of being quite level, it's turned into a bit of an average league. So I think there's no reason why they can't do it.
Yeah.
But there is just a but, isn't there? And there's always a but with Norwich.
And what you've said, Nick, is and this is what I'm sure every person that's watching this now is shaking their screen, going, just so annoyed, because you are completely right. I look at this league, and at every game we go into, I think we could beat them. We can beat them. We could have beaten Bournemouth. We We should have beaten Preston. Huddersfield, as you've analysed, was, I mean, come on, like we got a lucky mistake there, and lucky that that Adam Eder, slotted it home. By the way, hello to the Derby fans that are in this channel. Let's give you a bit of noise. Well done, congratulations. Let's be fair to you. Wayne Rooney, a lot of your fans were slagging him off, and now you're his best friend again, which is a bit two-faced, but there you go, indeed. Guy Fawkes 05. On a positive note, Ben Gibson will be great for us, I think. Guy Fawkes 05, lovely YouTube name, by the way. Couldn't agree more. I think Ben Gibson is brilliant, and I don't think we'll miss Ben Godfrey. Nick, Ben Gibson, is he going to be a mainstay in this team now? Can you see him actually being dropped from that team at all?
No. I think that this is a player that's not played for a long time, wants to be able to play clearly, and which is why he's come. So yeah, I think that's a defence that is ultimately going to be built around Ben Gibson. And it's a great, as I said before, he had Premier League interest, and I think it's a great coup. I think it's going to be about £8 million to make it a permanent one. So if they go up, so hopefully they do. But yeah, he is going to be the sort of central figure, I think, in that back line.
Nick, now look, I'm not going to lie. You know, one of the main reasons why I wanted to get you on today is you're very much in the know with regards to all things transfers. Without divulging too much, is this window over yet for Norwich City in terms of ins and outs?
You can't say definitively yes or no, because again, you can't. It's, you know, they're coming to half time and the 3 o'clock kickoffs at the minute. If a player's got injured, that changes plans, it changes the scene, changes everything for clubs. Norwich are ripe for the picking still. There's still players there. They're under no pressure to sell. I think we've seen that if they get good money and the right money, then they will. Are there players that they would like to move out? Yeah. Are there players that they would be desperate to keep? Yep. So it is just one that it's kind of watch this space, really, because they and the players have no control over what other clubs do. So they will be sitting by the phone, email, hoping it doesn't ring, basically.
Bullet well dodged, Nick. Bullet well dodged. Now,
well, you don't know. I'd love to say yes or no, but you know, look, is there active interest in the players at the minute? Yeah, there is, but until, as we've seen with Todd, and until things come to fruition and get finalised, there's nothing's happening. It sounds really boring, but
no, it's fine. I know it's obviously you can't give anything away. I wouldn't be doing my job properly with getting someone on like you and not trying to weasel something out of you. Look, guys,
I did send out a few messages yesterday, but I didn't get loads back. So I did speak to somebody last night, and I said, any change, and they were like, no, not really, not expecting there to be. So. So yeah, it is just a holding pattern really for the next 48 hours. And
somebody
players can go until the 16th, can't they, to the Premier League? So that's nervous 2 weeks.
Who out of the Norwich players remaining, who do you think is most likely to be sold and why?
It's probably the at the minute you'd have to say between Cantwell and Buendia. Purely because of the situation.
Do you think we'll keep Max?
Yeah, like they want to, naturally. I think he was one that they probably feared that they would lose the most, but he was the one that they wanted to keep the most.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I would suspect that Premier League teams don't have to rush for Monday, but. You know, is there any kind of saga over for Buendia or Cantwell? I wouldn't be able to draw a definitive line under that at the minute. So that's gonna drag on, I think, until either Daniel Farke kind of kisses and makes up, or one of them or both of them leave.
And of course, there is the transfer window, you know, later on in this season, which will of course open it all up again. So I certainly don't think this is over, is my honest opinion. Look, guys, I just wanted to take a moment. We're now an hour in. I just want to say thank you so much to every single one of you commenting, all of your opinions, your statements, your raves, your rants. I really appreciate it. I've seen all of them, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much for joining us today. I also wanted to give a massive shout out to our sponsors for this season: Idro, Ask, obviously Reeve Social Media, Credo Asset Finance, Oliver Hill from Hill Coaching, Gasway, Hoffram Webb, Best Legal Company, and of course Big C Cancer Charity. And we've got a brilliant auction for Big C going on next week, where you can obviously get your hands on a pair of Anel Hernandez signed match-worn boots, and of course at the same time raise hopefully a load of cash for a fantastic local cancer charity. And also wanted to take a moment, and a lot of you guys won't know who this is, but unfortunately very recently we lost Simon from Credo Asset Finance, who sadly passed away of cancer. So we're more determined than ever before to try and do something for him, in honour of him this season, and try and raise as much money as possible for Big C Cancer Charity. Thank you to everyone watching today. I really appreciate it. Nick, thank you so much for your time as well. I almost got something out of you. Almost.
I know, yeah. Sorry. There'll be more. I promise you. There'll be more.
Oh, okay, good. And last plug as well is tomorrow, 12 o'clock, our first exclusive podcast of the season is out. And believe me when I say it's raucous, it's lively, and my guest certainly doesn't pull any punches. Nick, thanks for your time. Thanks to everyone watching, and hopefully next time we speak, we'll be speaking about a win for Norwich City. Thank you very much, and good night.